Welcome to the T-Squared Dad's Brown Bag Podcast. Here's your hosts, Kyle Baker and Dieter Burrell. All right, welcome back to the T-Squared Dad's Brown Bag Podcast. It's Dieter and Kyle here. And today we're going to be talking about something that Dieter and I are constantly doing, trying to find new ways to do it, and that's networking. Places that you can go to meet new people that are in the same career path as you, to meet new people that might be potential clients, and different activities and things like that we can do. And also we might even get into a little bit of the marketing side of things and, you know, where you should be allocating your money, whether it's to new clients or existing clients. But Dieter, have you been to any networking events lately or anything like that, meeting any new people?
I haven't been to an event lately because I've been super swamped with work. But if anybody wants to do any events or want to learn about that kind of stuff, I would reach out to your local AIA chapter.
Yeah, for
especially
architecture.
in architecture. You know, I know that here also we have, I think, SMP.
Yeah, SMP. So like any kind of like small business groups, but anywhere that you are, there should be groups that are meeting on a regular basis. Reach out to your cities, look online, find out where some of those events are happening. I know there's probably like doctor meetups. There's probably, you know, we have the AIA for architecture.
Right. Around
here, SMPS is like a marketing group that meets. But there's definitely places and things like that that are available to everyone trying to meet new people inside their field.
I know. I just heard somebody tell me that there were some folks walking around downtown Pensacola, and they had these, I guess, some sort of collar with the
lanyard.
Lanyard. Yep. I think Studer.
Yeah, I think you're referring to Entrecon.
Entrecon. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and right now in downtown Pensacola, there's an event going on called Entrecon, where it's for entrepreneurs, young businesses, and they have a whole bunch of like speakers that come in and, you know, speak to ways of growing their business and stuff. But that's a great example of a way to meet new people that are like-minded, trying to enhance their growth in their business, enhance their leadership skills. So things like that, being aware of things that are going on like that in your city could be really beneficial in meeting new people.
You got to challenge yourself. This is one of the things that I took a course on when you have to go meet and greet people. Challenge yourself. Take business cards and make it a game that you introduce yourself to as many people as you can. You can hand out business cards and try to get their business cards and reach back out to them. That's a great way to kind of network. You don't have to try to sell something. You just got to introduce yourself to people and just tell them what you do. You'd be surprised when somebody says to you, "What is your specialty?" And you have to tell people, it's like, my specialty is whatever difficulty you're having with your building or the way people manage it, or maybe there's some improvement that you can do to help them.
Yeah, it's interesting whenever you go into those environments, though, trying to meet new people. Like giving a business card is great. Trying to remember people's names has always been kind of a difficult piece for me because I meet so many new people. Asking them, I know you always tell me, like, if you don't remember, just ask, right? So you're meeting someone new, they say, "Hey, my name's James," and 2 or 3 minutes later, you're getting ready to leave and you want to say bye to them, but you don't remember their name. Well, actually, it's more beneficial to that person if you go, "Hey, man, it was great meeting you. What was your name again?" "Oh, it was James." And then they actually feel like you really cared about learning who they were and what their name was because you were planning on reaching back out to them in the future.
Yeah, it's a little known fact that saying your name, even though people don't ask your name all the time, saying your name sends endorphins to your brain, which actually is a feel-good kind of situation where you hear somebody say, "What's your name?" and you repeat it to them. It actually, sometimes people feel like, oh, they're going to think I'm dumb, I can't remember their name. But in fact, it's a great thing for them to say their name, which shoots a happy feeling to say your name and say, "Hey, my name is Dieter Burrell." And sometimes people may think that, you know what, I better not ask them. And then you kind of walk away from the conversation not remembering their name. And in fact, you should actually be asking their names. Sometimes at some point in the conversation, you could say, it's like, it was a Jim that you say, no, John. I knew that started with a J, and you can sometimes even get a chuckle out of it. It's like, yeah, I always get that. People tell me, or Lee Ann, and you're trying to remember their first part of their name, and you say Ann, and it becomes something like an icebreaker. You almost re-break the ice again when you have a conversation, but it triggers them to ask your name, and you can get a sense of people if they really seem genuinely interested in talking to you, because they'll ask your name, unless they remember it. But that's how you can kind of, and I tell my kids, it's like when you talk to people, just ask them, hey, what's your name? My name is Dieter Burrow. What's your name?
Yeah.
And it triggers that conversation. And if they're really genuinely interested in talking to you, they'll tell you their name, you know. And sometimes there's times where you have pauses like we do when we're trying to talk to each other, that it becomes an awkward pause. But you can kind of, I took a course about how to break conversation without making the other person feel bad.
Right.
But you always kind of have to have a way to break away from a conversation. Maybe when it's something that's really awkward and you don't want to be there, that's another technique. But obviously we won't talk about that. But what we're really talking about is like networking and talking to people and remembering their names and getting their business cards and you promoting yourself. So that people are aware. One of the things that Kyle did, and you can talk a little more about it. You had a presentation one time about flying drones in one of these marketing venues.
Yeah, and that was a great way to meet people. Taking on like a speaking engagement, going to present some knowledge that you have, you would be surprised at how many people out of that group came up and wanted to meet me personally, not just as a speaker, but personally afterwards to ask me questions, to give me their information so I could give them my information and reach back out to me at a later date when they had questions. Being a quote-unquote expert in a field allows you to meet people that are interested in that field. And those types of things, in which I want to talk about, Dieter, as far as active networking versus passive networking, things like that are definitely active networking. Like you woke up today, you're going to go to this event. That is you actively trying to meet new people. Like today, for instance, I'm going to play in a golf tournament with other people that are in our field. And the reason for that is, yes, I like to play golf and it's a great and beautiful day outside, but also it's to meet new people, possibly clients, possibly consultants, people I can call on at a later date that I've kind of formed a relationship with when I have a question that I need answered, or I need a favor, or hey, I'm working on this project and we really could use a landscape architect. And that's the way that you're going to meet those people. Yeah, sure, you can go on Google and look for local landscape architects, right? But calling someone out of the blue is not the same as being able to call someone and say, hey, remember I met you out at that golf tournament, and I'm working on this project and I'd really like to get your input on this. Would you mind grabbing a coffee with me and like talking with the project, right? So that's that active networking. But there are also other times where you're passively networking, where you don't necessarily know that people are listening to what you're saying, people are interested in what you're doing. And I think that is really where a lot of those deeper connections kind of come from. For instance, I think I told you I went to one of the Florida football games, right? So I'm tailgating. There's a group next to me that's tailgating. We're having a couple of drinks. We're eating food. We're doing all these fun things. And we already kind of have a similar piece that we can draw on, which is UF football. So we're talking about football. Next thing you know, we're talking about what they do for a living. I talk about what I'm doing for a living. I say I'm in architecture. And turns out one of the people that I've been hanging out with for the past couple of hours is actually looking to build a house. Yeah. Right? So now my brain switches from a passive kind of networking to this person could actually use my services. This person is actually really interested in what I do, not just in me. And being able to be prepared for those situations is key.
Yeah.
Right? You always carry a business card with you. You always are able to give your information and really be able to tell them about what you do in that situation.
Right. Right. It reminds me of, I don't know if you guys remember the show In Living Color, where there used to be this skid where the guy's kind of always reaching for his business card and he tries to whip it out and hand it over to somebody when they're trying to introduce themselves and what they do. But they joke around about that. And I know it's a good sense of humor to have, but you also have to have that sense of humor when you're going into these groups settings where some folks may feel uncomfortable just being there. Sometimes it is cliquey, I would say the word, when you have people kind of sitting and they're talking amongst themselves, because you tend to migrate to people that you know, and you don't want to kind of put yourself out of, put you in an uncomfortable feeling. But when you're marketing, you mentioned it, so you have passive and you have active. That would be an active situation where you're actually trying to introduce yourself. You're trying to, some people sometimes have these booths and you walk around and it's like, oh, this is kind of neat. Can you tell me a little more about it? Just saying that, just breaking the ice on that, or seeing somebody that they're staring at something and they're trying to learn. It's like, just you jumping in and say that, that seems very curious as to how you do blah, 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 whatever it is that they're actually looking at. So that becomes sort of the icebreaker when you're trying to introduce yourself to somebody else, unless you know specifically the people that you're trying to get to know, because
you're targeting a specific clientele.
You know some folks. It's like you go out there and you do your homework before you go to this group setting, and okay, I know that John, Peter, and Claudia are going to be there. I want to see if I can bump elbows with them,
mm-hmm.
or do something so I can kind of get my face in front of them, because sometimes it becomes repetition,
right?
Seeing your face over and over again.
And it seems kind of odd to talk about forming a relationship in that way, but it is something that is done in all different aspects of work environments. I really want to get this client. I know that they are potentially, for us in our careers, it's potentially wanting to build a building in the future, right? We know that their business is expanding. How do we place ourselves so that when they get ready to pull the trigger on that project, we're one of the first people that they call, right? So you don't want to stalk someone, right? But if you notice that they frequent this type of event, like this Entrecon, we know that person is going to be there, right? So we might get to run into them, introduce ourselves, nothing crazy, and then hey, turns out we're gonna go get lunch over here. Would you like to come?
Right.
A lot of people, yeah, sure, that'd be great. Okay, well, now not only have we met them, now we're going to go have lunch with them. We're going to be face-to-face in a smaller crowd and be able to talk a little bit more personally. And then after that, it's setting up these continuing little meetings, right? I know that person always goes to this baseball game, right? Well, I might try to get a ticket and go, and maybe I'll run into them. Maybe you won't, but maybe you will. And sometimes you have to kind of find a person's patterns. Where do they frequent lunch at? Where do they frequent, a Friday afternoon cocktail? Where do they go to find enjoyment? Do they go to a gym? Do they go on a walk in the afternoons? You don't want to be creepy, right?
Right.
But it's finding that line where you could just pass by, or, I know their office is on, W Street. Well, I might have lunch on W Street and sit outside, and maybe I see them in passing.
Right.
So you have to find that line. But those memorable pieces where you are constantly in their network, right?
Right.
They're going to assume, he must do a lot of the same things that I do. I can make connections with him, and then the next thing you know, you have a relationship, and he has your information. And so when that project comes up, or that, marketing piece comes in, he goes, oh, you know what? I really need to call Kyle. I've been running into him a lot lately. He's, in the same circles that I'm in. Let me see what he has going on. I know he's able to take care of this for me.
Right.
And then you get the phone call, and maybe you get the job. But like we were saying, that is all active networking. Those are things where people are strategizing in a very specific way.
Right.
To try to get the clientele that they need. And one thing that I did want to talk to you about, Dieter, and I don't know if with your new business, if you've started kind of budgeting these things, but your marketing and your client marketing, and where that money is being allocated. Is it being allocated to new clients? Is it being allocated to the clients that you have? With the holidays coming around, that's a big time to kind of reach back out to people that you haven't talked to in a while.
Right.
Most companies, you're sending out like a gift for the office, or you're doing something like that. Have you kind of thought about that at all, of where that budget's going to go, how you're going to allocate that kind of thing?
I have been thinking about it. I remember when I was studying to get my real estate license a long time ago, almost 25 years ago. They ran through percentages that they recommended for realtors to allocate for marketing. And the one number that stuck in my head was 20% of your profit.
Oh, okay.
Which seems like a lot to some people, but when you start realizing it's like all the other stuff that you pay, you end up looking at your numbers, and nobody ever spends 20% in marketing, so it's less. But the people that are successful at using their money, they're the ones that are bringing in a lot more clients, and they're getting more phone calls.
Yeah.
That is something that's always stuck with me. Now that I'm running my own business in its infancy, I can't budget for that much. I can only have better relationships with the people that I work with, and I get that referral from someone that liked what I did. Mm-hmm. So even though you're not marketing, your relationship with that person that you're working with is a sort of marketing. So if you have a good relationship with that person, then they recommend you to somebody else.
Well, and I think part of that is at least in our business, time is money, right? So I might not have a lot of liquid cash in my business where you could send $100 box of chocolates, or send tickets to a football game or something like that. But something even just as simple as, hey, I haven't talked to this guy in a long time. It's kind of near the holidays. I'll give him a call. Doesn't cost you any money. Call him. Hey, man, I haven't talked to you in a while. How's the family doing? Holidays right around the corner. You guys going out of town? Just wanted to call and chat and see how you've been. Right? Doesn't cost you any money, but to that person, it might be hey, Dieter's really thinking about me as a client and as a person.
Right.
Or I know one thing that a lot of small businesses even do is a handwritten holiday card.
Yeah.
Right? Not very expensive,
yeah.
But you receive that as a client in your mailbox, and you're like, oh man, he took the time to handwrite me a card, and he was thinking about me enough to do something like this.
Yeah.
It could be very, very beneficial for your company, and that would be another type of networking and marketing. And I was in a class one time at PSMJ, and they asked the question, how much money are you allocating to your current clients? And most people said somewhere between 70 and 80% of your budget. Or, sorry, the other way around. 20 to 30% of their budget was going to existing clients. And they were spending about 70 or 80% to get new clients. But then the follow-up question to that is, where does most of your work come from? Does it come from continuing projects with existing clients, or does it come from new clients? And it was actually the opposite, right? So 80% of their work was coming from the existing clients that they have, but they were only spending 20% of their marketing budget to keep them.
Right.
And really, it should be the other way around. You should be spending more money making the people that you're already working with happy and feel appreciated than you should trying to find new clients that would be that new potential, right? Especially if you've been in the business for a long time.
Yeah. Especially if they're paying.
Yes. Keeping the clients that you already have is much better than trying to spend so much time and effort to go find that one other client. So I think that that's something that people really need to embrace and really need to think about whenever they're going to meet new clients, whenever they're treating the existing clients that they have in a specific way. So is there anything else you wanted to add to any of that?
Just real quick, it doesn't have to be a function that you participate, that you're involved in, that is all related to work. In other words, like a training seminar or a Studer Institute thing that they're having at Entercon. It doesn't have to be about business. It could be if you're an alumni. Mm-hmm. Just be involved in your. They got clubs. I know they have one here in Pensacola for Florida Gators.
Yep.
Sports clubs. If you're a car enthusiast, you're marketing without you trying because people are getting to know you.
And in situations like that, you already have a common talking point. A lot of people, whenever you go to these networking events, the first little while is trying to figure out who you have something in common with. And as a business owner, as a young professional, or just a professional in general, trying to find somewhere that you have common ground with somebody is the first key. Having that artillery in your back pocket of, I know a little bit about this, I know a little bit about that, and being able to figure out what these people have in common. Both of us being dads, my first thing normally that I ask somebody is, oh, do you have any children? Oh yeah, I have two boys. Oh, great. I have a boy and a girl, and they're a hoot, and they're rascals. And next thing you know, you're talking about your kids, and then the next thing you know, you're talking about what you do for a living and how we can help each other grow. And so trying to find a common ground is, I think, the first point and the cornerstone of making those networking connections happen.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, I think that was really good, Dieter. We'll wrap it up there. But before we go, the joke of the day. What do you call a fake noodle? An impasta. Thanks for listening to the T-Squared Dad's Brown Bag Podcast. Please subscribe on your favorite platform, and we will talk to you next time.